And we are back here on the Blue and Gold Report celebrating the UC Irvine men's volleyball team's national championship Saturday night, a 3-0 whitewash over previously #1 BYU. And we're with setter Chris Austin, the senior, who's meant so much to this program. Let's go for it, Fumi.
Chris, the distribution was pretty even. We had 3 players, I think, with 11 kills and a couple with 7. What was your rationale in deciding who was going to get the ball at any point of the game?
For me, it's all about matchups. I mean, even going into playoffs, I think setters are the one position where you kind of have to hold the cards a little bit in each match and kind of make sure your distribution's different. So going into the semis, I knew that I was going to set Tilly and Colin a lot, and then going into the finals, I knew that BYU would be keying on our quick and big. So I would set a lot of short side, going at their small guys, and a lot of it was about matchups. I mean, keeping the ball away from Taylor Sander as a blocker, going to Connor and Tilly fast on the left side, and hitting our middles in transition because I knew that their middles were going to commit and serve receive.
So seeing BYU twice in the regular season, you already had a good handle on their strategy against UC Irvine?
Yeah, and the fun part for me is this was actually my first time playing BYU in my 2 years here, and so I'm 1-0 against them. So I got to sit back and watch the way they play us a lot from the video aspect, from a stands aspect, or from the bench aspect, or whatever it was, and luckily it worked out for me.
What are some of the key physical attributes to be such a wonderful setter that someone has to have to play at this level of competition?
I mean, I think physically, obviously you got to be strong, you have to have some good wrists, you have to have vision, and height always helps. But for me, I think being a good setter has a lot more to do with your mentality. I mean, the way that you think, the way that you observe the game, the way that you distribute, and your decision making is huge at this level of play because there's lots of good, tall, aggressive, athletic setters out there, but in order to win championships, you have to have a good brain.
You talked a little bit about, taking risks. Do you think you take more risks than other setters?
Definitely. I think I take risks, especially early on in matches. I mean, I think I'm a good closer. I really know how to distribute at the end of the game, and I know what teams are going to do in terms of how they play me at the end of the game. But early on in matches, I definitely like to take some risks just to show the other team that they got to be on their toes.
We're with Chris Austin, the All-American setter of the national champion UC Irvine men's volleyball team. There have been some changes in the starting lineups and different strategies used by Coach Niffen, who did obviously a marvelous job this year. Talk about some of the inconsistencies in lineups and adjustments you had to make.
Well, that's the nice thing about UC Irvine volleyball. I think we're the one program where you can literally have somebody who's an All-American that doesn't start a match in the season. And we have so much depth on our team throughout the years because of the way our coaches recruit and the way our staffs bring up good players. So knowing at any moment that anybody can come on the court keeps us on our toes as well to make sure that we're not getting too comfortable in what the lineup is.
Now, taking a step back, looking at the semifinal, UC Irvine swept Loyola of Chicago, but the set scores were pretty close. How did you prepare for them? Because you didn't see them in the regular season, and I don't know if there was a lot of video on them available to you guys.
Yeah, in that match we kind of went in blind. We didn't know too much about our opponent. I think we watched video for the second time the day of the match overall, but that was a good opportunity for us to just go in saying we have to play our game, because that was kind of our motto of the whole tournament, to say if we win or lose, it's not going to come down to what the other team does. It's going to come down to what we do. So I think that was actually a really good preparation game for us because we got to focus on ourselves so much.
What was the conversation that Coach Niffen had with you to reinsert you back into the starting lineup? Did he pull you aside, or just one day, next match, you're in the starting lineup?
Well, at the beginning of the year, we had a conversation, and I kind of told him where I was coming from, where he was coming from, and he said, at the end of the season, you're going to be the guy, and you need to know that. So throughout the season, we had the ebbs and flows, and I wasn't the starter for a little period of time, but I knew once I got my opportunity that when I have my back against the wall is usually when I play the best. So when I'm looking forward to an opportunity, I'm hungry, and then once I get it, it's game over from there.
You have an interesting story about how you got into volleyball.
Yeah, I actually was a basketball player and on the drum line in my high school, going into high school, and I have this friend who was on my basketball team who was going to volleyball intramurals at my school, and I didn't really have a ton of interest, but he told me he would buy me lunch for every time that I went, so he kind of bribed me into going to lunch a few times, and I actually didn't really like it at first, and I wasn't going to play, but somehow he convinced me to go to tryouts, and I made the team, and I started to get the hang of it after a few weeks, and then that summer between my freshman and sophomore year, I started to see, I think I saw my first collegiate match, and that's when I saw what volleyball could be and not what it was in Las Vegas, and so I kind of got bugged from there.
Well, Chris, you were an outside hitter, I think, to begin with, and then obviously now a tremendous setter. Where did that switch occur? Who put that idea into your head, or was it you?
I was an outside hitter, and going into college, I've actually transferred a couple times. I went to the University of Hawaii as an outside, and John Crutchfield, one of the assistants at Long Beach State, coached me in a couple camps. And this was around the time where a lot of the collegiate outside started to get 6'6", 6'7", 6'8", and so he said, I think your best opportunity at having an opportunity to play in college is to become a setter. So you're going to have to think a little bit about it and make the decision, and I kind of took the plunge, and luckily it's worked out for me.
You know, you spent 2 years at UCI and you come away with 2 rings. Did you, when you made the decision to transfer, did you think that was the end point?
Yeah, once Niffen was actually the person who recruited me here originally, and he and Speraw had vision, and they had a lot of experience in the Final Four, and I knew that if I came here, I'd have a good opportunity to win championships, and I was going to have to do some work, and the guys around me were going to have to do some work, but I knew that this was probably the best place to facilitate my championship dreams.
Connor said you played in a beach tournament the day after?
Yeah, we were, don't tell my mom, but we were actually up until about 4 or 5 in the morning last night celebrating, and then I had to be at the beach by 7:30 a.m. the next morning for a tournament that I agreed to play in about a week ago, so yeah.
Is the beach in your future?
Potentially. I mean, I hope to travel overseas this summer with the beach U23 national team, and I also want to look at some opportunities that I have to play overseas and maybe get a contract in that. But for the next few days here, I'm going to kind of keep it mellow and just let my body heal up a little bit. But I'm going to have to make a decision pretty soon here on what I want to do in the future.
Chris, you're a perfect 2 for 2. 2 years, 2 national championships. But now we lose you. You leave the fold, which is sad for us, maybe good for you as far as making a few bucks. How do we look in the future? Is the future bright?
Oh, this team has so much depth. I mean, literally, you've had 4 different outside hitters in both years start the beginning of the season and end the end of the season. And I think that's going to be a trend that continues here at UC Irvine. Niffen's a great recruiter, Mark Prescia's a great recruiter, and we have 2 young, healthy assistants who are really hungry to become really good recruiters. And people are going to want to come here because UC Irvine has a history of success. I mean, 5 Final Fours in the last 8 years and 4 national championships in the last 7. That's a ridiculous feat for any school, let alone a school that doesn't have the resources to compete with a UCLA or USC. And so, if kids are smart, they're going to keep coming here.
If you could sum up your experience here at UC Irvine.
The easiest word to use is just unreal. I mean, I came here knowing that I would have the opportunity to win national championships and become a better volleyball player and gain my knowledge, but it's been off the charts in terms of what I've learned, the experience I've had, the people I've met, the contacts that I've made. It's just, I couldn't have picked a better place to go to school.
Chris, national champions, you didn't lose a game, winning 6 straight. I knew you believed that you could win it. Did you think you could just run the table and completely whitewash the opponents in the Final Four?
Yeah, I actually knew that we could because of the fact that this team had lost to BYU twice before, and I know I had a personal hunger because I hadn't played them before, and I didn't want to end my career with any losing record against any team. And so I hadn't ever lost a game in Long Beach before that semifinal, so when we got the call on the selection show, I knew that I'd have one opportunity to potentially play Loyola, and so I wanted to make sure I finished above 500 against them, and I knew I'd have one opportunity to play BYU, so I got to make sure I end on that brand of every team.
You and Connor are a credit to the school, not just athletically, but as people. Really, thank you on a busy few days, and hopefully it's going to be a busy couple of months for you coming up, Chris, for coming by on the Blue and Gold Report, sharing the national championship. Hey, you make Fumi's job and my job a dream job, so thanks for stopping by,
Hey,
Chris
thanks
Austin.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
We'll take a break. I'll be back with Fumi, and I'll be back myself to get you ready for what's coming up in UC Irvine Intercollegiate Athletics as we close down this edition of the Blue and Gold Report on 88.9 FM KUCI and on the web at kuci.org.